Picture this. You've endured a long day, exhausted, mind worn thin. You barely have the strength to speak. You come home, and there it is. A cup of coffee just the way you like it. No questions asked. She doesn't say much, just a hand on your shoulder. Silent, but somehow it steadies your soul. Not everyone does this. Only the woman who truly loves does. We live in a world where love is often distorted into curated stories and sweet texts. But a woman who truly loves has no need for ornamented words. She chooses action, quiet yet resolute. Stoicism teaches that true love is not born of impulse, but of endurance and conscious choice. Today we explore 6 acts that only emerge when a woman truly loves, not because society taught her to, but because in a world full of faces, her heart chose you. 1. Attentive care without asking. There is something not easily seen at first, but with time and depth in a relationship, it becomes clear. True love does not begin with expensive gifts or fleeting sweet words. It reveals itself most clearly through quiet understanding. When someone sees what you need before you've spoken a word. And for a woman who truly loves, this isn't effort, it's instinct. She observes, not to judge, but with full presence. She notices the way you sigh at the end of the day, how you skip meals when your mood turns, the distant gaze you carry when something weighs on your mind. No one taught her to remember these things. No one asked her to care. But in her mind, your smallest gestures carry meaning. You don't need to say, "I'm hungry." She's already made you something light. You don't have to complain. She simply asks, "Was today hard on you?" This attentiveness does not come from communication skills or years of experience. It flows from emotional depth. When love moves beyond words, it becomes silent care, precise and uncanny. Often, she senses what you suppress, not because you show it, but because she's attuned to your inner world. Her presence does not intrude. It calms, like a gentle current, reaching you in your most fragile moments. Not every woman can do this. It demands an inner stillness. A person ruled by ego, hungry for attention, or eager for praise, lacks the quiet strength needed to truly observe another. A woman who loves you sincerely isn't here to change you or to polish your life for the world's admiration. She simply wants you to be yourself, comfortable, safe, and whole. When you're tired, she doesn't ask out of politeness. Her "how are you" isn't routine, it's real. She asks because she wants to help, or even in the smallest way. It might be a cup of unsweetened coffee, knowing you're cutting caffeine. It might be silent companionship on a night you need your thoughts, or a sticky note on the mirror, reminding you to breathe and stay patient before facing the chaos of the day. All of this has one thing in common. You don't have to ask. You don't have to explain. Somehow, she reads what you need, in your emotions, your eyes, the silence between you. And what's extraordinary, she expects nothing in return. In daily life, such quiet gestures often seem normal or unremarkable. But few people care enough, are patient enough, or emotionally mature enough to act in this way. Sensing another's needs without being told is the highest form of connection, a resonance born not of words, but of deep inner harmony. From a Stoic lens, this is mindfulness, a core virtue of a well-examined life. Mindfulness isn't mere meditation. It's being awake to each moment and responding with reason, calm, and compassion. The woman who truly loves is an embodiment of this spirit. She cares not to control or prove her place, but because she sees your need and she wants you well. This may surprise you. It might even make you uncomfortable, unaccustomed to being cared for in this way. But that is precisely the moment to realize this is not a love that seeks repayment. It is love without condition, expressed mindfully, unshaken by fleeting emotion. And so, it is rare and worthy of reverence. In a world where actions are often tied to expected rewards, a like, a thank you, public validation, silent love becomes rare. A woman who truly loves a man often shares one defining trait. She acts without seeking praise, acknowledgement, or spotlight. What she does needs no applause, no audience. She doesn't love to be noticed. She loves to uphold. These quiet acts are not small, but because she never mentions them, they are often overlooked. She might be the one who wakes early to prepare your day, unasked. She remembers your big meeting, sends a message at just the right moment, or leaves a gentle reminder not to forget your medicine. She does it not to impress, but because she genuinely wants you steady. Unlike impulsive affections broadcast on social media, this kind of love doesn't crave instant response. She doesn't need to post your photos, tag your name, or hear you're amazing to continue caring. Her actions unfold in silence, repeated over time, not as a transaction, but as the way her heart has chosen to love. She doesn't count what she gives. She doesn't need thanks. She only hopes you're a bit stronger each day. And if her presence contributes to that, it's enough. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, this is virtue in motion, doing what's right, not for a reward, but because it must be done. In Stoicism, restraint, humility, and selfless care are not ideals in thought alone. They take form in daily choices. She may never use philosophical terms, yet she lives by them. She is not led by emotion. She demands nothing. She is sovereign in love, and therefore powerful. Her lack of need for recognition is not lack of feeling. It reflects a matured love, where the ego is no longer central. In transactional relationships, every action carries an expectation. I do this, and in return, I want that. But here, each gesture comes from within, a conscious choice, free of any demand. If you don't notice, she doesn't resent it. If you forget to thank her, she doesn't hold it against you. Her love is not governed by conditions, and yet, because of this silence, her efforts are easy to miss. Meals that suit your taste, folded clothes, holding back stories so you can focus. These seem ordinary until they're gone. Then you realize nothing was random, nothing was automatic. Everything required someone who truly cared. And because she never asked, her love is all the more precious. What makes these acts extraordinary is their constancy, and the fact that they do not weigh on the one who receives them. You don't feel indebted. You don't feel coerced. You feel at peace. This is love that doesn't arraign. It fills. It doesn't clamor. It endures. No grand declarations, no spotlight. Just a quiet current that flows every day, without fail. In a world that grows louder, where attention is currency, the silence of love becomes its loudest truth. And the woman who loves you, not for your status, nor to prove anything, loves you in stillness. And in that stillness lies the foundation of something unshakable. 2. Defending your honor in your absence. In any relationship, the truest test of loyalty and respect lies in what happens when the other person is no longer present. When you're not there to speak for yourself, what she says or doesn't say reveals more than 1,000 declarations of love. A woman who truly loves you doesn't only show it when you're around, but in how she protects your name when you're not there to see it. She doesn't stay silent when others belittle you. She doesn't dismiss insults or mockery. And most importantly, she doesn't speak up to impress anyone. She does it naturally, out of deep respect for who you are. This act need not be loud or confrontational. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, "I think you've misunderstood him," or a shift in her gaze that makes others reconsider their next words. At times, she quietly steps away from a disrespectful conversation rather than fuel it. Each of these choices shows she does not side with the crowd when your honor becomes a target. She doesn't do it for your gratitude or praise. In most cases, you won't even know it happened. But it is precisely this quiet, voluntary integrity that reveals the sincerity of her love. She sees your honor as part of her own. If she allowed others to degrade your name without protest, she would also be allowing them to trample on the shared values between you. For her, defending your name is an act of preserving boundaries, virtue, and the integrity of the relationship. In today's world, where it's common for people to mock or gossip about their partner's flaws, this restraint is rare. Many relationships are born from fleeting emotion, and when storms pass, people share private stories for sympathy or ridicule. But a woman who truly loves doesn't behave this way, no matter the opportunity or the motive. She knows the line between what should be said and what must be kept. And when someone crosses that line, she speaks up, firmly, clearly, but always with dignity. Speaking out when others belittle you isn't just emotional. It's a conscious moral decision. In the Stoic spirit, it is an act rooted in virtue, namely integrity and courage. Integrity to uphold truth in the face of distortion, and courage to act rightly even when no one demands it. Stoicism discourages empty bravado, but values steadfastness in what is just. A woman who acts in this way isn't moved by impulse. She lives by a principle. She will not allow what is sacred to be violated, not even by words. Moreover, her timely defense shows a clear distinction between private emotion and public dignity. She may disagree with you, feel anger, or hold unresolved conflict, but when you're not there, she won't let personal emotions distort the truth of who you are. She won't use the moment to vent her frustrations, nor make you a target for someone else's critique. Instead, she stands firm. You may be wrong in a moment, but that doesn't make you deserving of insult. This is clarity of thought, a rational foundation for mature love. Ultimately, protecting your honor doesn't require applause or recognition. She acts without an audience because what matters isn't who sees, it's that she stood for what's right. A relationship built on that foundation, where both know they are protected even in absence, is a bond that can endure anything. In a world obsessed with emotional transparency as a form of authenticity, a woman who guards your image with discretion and care becomes a rare presence. Unlike open confrontation, this quiet protection plays out in everyday speech, in the way she talks about you to others, in every detail she chooses to share or withhold. Like all actions rooted in self-restraint and respect, this isn't fear, it's mindfulness and maturity. A woman who truly loves you won't casually expose your flaws in public. Even if those flaws are real, even if she was hurt or dissatisfied by them, she chooses to keep them private rather than turn them into stories for others. Not because she wants to hide you, nor to paint you as perfect, but because she understands that personal dignity is not meant to be scattered across trivial conversations. When asked about you, she doesn't need to list your virtues, your success, or your uniqueness, but she speaks with respect. She doesn't mock your mistakes, nor turn your quirks into private memes. In casual meals with friends, in idle chats with family, she always knows what to share and what to keep. That's respect beyond passing emotion, alert, reasoned, and loyal. This behavior does not depend on your watchfulness. In most cases, you won't know what she said about you in your absence, and that's what gives it meaning. She doesn't act so you'll feel secure or indebted. She acts because it protects the value of the relationship. Each time she chooses words with care, she draws a clear line between privacy and public space, between what should be shared to foster understanding and what must be guarded to preserve respect. From a Stoic perspective, this reflects self-mastery and emotional discipline. Stoic philosophy teaches that private matters and vulnerable truths must be governed by reason before being surrendered to emotional tides. One may feel disappointed, angry, or hurt, but that is no reason to harm the dignity of someone you love. Careless exposure of a loved one's flaws does not bring true relief. It erodes the trust that takes years to build. This kind of restraint also has long-term value. No relationship is without its storms. There will be conflict, tension, and misunderstanding. But if each grievance is shared with outsiders, eventually your image becomes distorted. And even when reconciliation comes, the residue of those words remains. A wise woman protects not just your present self, but how you're remembered by others. Guarding the image of the man she loves is not weakness nor submission. It is inner strength, the ability to choose what to say, what to hold, and what to let go. She doesn't save face to protect your ego, but to preserve the sacredness of a bond she holds dear. In places where others speak loosely, joke recklessly, or casually gossip, she keeps your name intact, even if you're no longer by her side. In dignified love, safeguarding the other's image is an act of loyalty, not from obligation, but from deep recognition of each other's worth. A woman who can do this doesn't need to announce it. She doesn't seek praise for her discretion. She only needs to know that she has not let anyone see you through a distorted lens. And that, in its quiet grace, is one of love's noblest forms. 3. Willing commitment, even before love is official. In modern relationships, where the line between intimacy and ambiguity has become increasingly blurred, a woman who willingly steps away from unclear connections, even before formally entering a relationship, demonstrates conscious attachment, not because she was asked to, not under pressure, but because she chose to. That choice is not announced, not validated, and seeks no recognition, not even from the man she's beginning to feel deeply for. This act of withdrawing is not a dramatic severance, nor a deliberate distancing. It unfolds quietly, naturally, like a river changing course. No sound, no resistance. She gradually limits needless conversations, ambiguous meetings, and replies, once sent to maintain social rapport rather than serve any true need. Letting go of such ties is not retreat from the world, but space-making for something more meaningful. What makes this act notable is that it happens before any promise, any formal commitment, or any label. She doesn't need to be called girlfriend to begin clearing the emotional noise. She doesn't do this to earn anything, but because what is forming within her no longer permits dispersion. Inner clarity leads her to abandon emotional hedging and backup plans. It's a moment where consistency of the soul shapes behavior, a living example of the Stoic ideal of mindful living. Often, this withdrawal goes unnoticed by others. Sometimes, even the man growing in importance to her remains unaware. She does not perform sacrifice to gain favor. She does not list what she's given up. Everything happens in silence, and that silence is the strongest proof that she has already assigned you a place too significant for ambiguity. This reflects a kind of inner discipline, an essential Stoic quality. Discipline is not only restraint of impulse or endurance of hardship, but the ability to direct one's actions in alignment with an internal moral compass. When a woman steps away from vague entanglements, she's performing a form of curation, keeping what matters, discarding what distracts. It's not merely emotional fidelity. It's the ability to know what deserves emotional investment. In a society where people often keep back doors open to alternate connections, her quiet decisiveness holds special value. She doesn't keep anyone as a backup. She doesn't maintain attention just to feel wanted. She accepts temporary emptiness if necessary, rather than fill the void with unsteady sources. This is a sign of perceptual maturity, what Stoicism calls living by reason, not by impulse. Yet this withdrawal doesn't make her closed or passive. Quite the opposite. It reveals her active role in building a healthy emotional space. She clears the static to nurture a connection with focus and peace, like tending a fragile new seedling, patient, unshowy, but filled with inward anticipation. This requires no contract or external supervision. She doesn't do it to earn respect. She does it because she's made a quiet decision. Commitment need not begin with words. It can begin in silent, steadfast action, with no need for explanation. In modern relationships, especially before commitment is defined, people are often pulled into an invisible cycle of self-validation. This shows most clearly in the constant quest for attention, a way to prove one's desirability, one's relevance. But when a woman truly loves, even before the relationship is shaped, what stands out isn't what she shows, but what she stops. She begins to reduce, or entirely abandon, the need to affirm herself through looks, compliments, or being pursued by others. This shift doesn't announce itself. She doesn't declare a change, doesn't post a caption saying she's different now. It begins within, in silent awareness. She no longer feels compelled to post suggestive photos, nor seeks the likes or comments that once mattered. What used to belong to an earlier self, one needing external affirmation to feel complete, now holds less sway. The emotional connection she's forming, though still undefined, brings her enough stability that outside validation becomes redundant. When attention is no longer the currency of self-worth, her behavior becomes more consistent. She doesn't dress to be seen, doesn't interact to be chased, doesn't blur lines to keep options hovering nearby. Instead, she shares only what's needed, guards the privacy of what's forming, and slows her pace in her own space. It's not that she's lost her allure. She simply no longer needs others' recognition to feel valuable. That value is now measured not by the number of eyes on her, but by the depth of a bond being quietly nurtured, one not yet named, but strong enough to redirect her behavior. From a Stoic view, this reflects emotional self-governance, a foundational aspect of inner life. Stoicism teaches that we mustn't be ruled by external factors, especially those beyond our control. Praise, admiration, or fleeting attention, depending on external responses, leaves one unanchored, easily swayed, and estranged from true selfhood. When a woman lowers her need for attention, she steps out of that grip and into the domain of reason over emotion. Importantly, she does not make this shift because anyone told her to. No one demanded she become more reserved. No boundary was imposed. This change arises entirely from within, a center now calmed by genuine emotion, no longer volatile or self-seeking. Once she no longer needs attention to feel worthy, she becomes quieter, but also clearer in every choice. She no longer plays with ambiguity or sends mixed signals. Every action, every presence, serves a deliberate purpose, born from awareness, not the need to provoke emotion in others. This transition also stabilizes the relationship between her and the man she's leaning toward, even before any promises are made. Without sending mixed messages outward, the emotional space between them becomes more focused and coherent. There is no leakage of energy to shallow ties, no misunderstandings. This lays a foundation of trust, not through declarations, but through consistent behavior that speaks for itself. In an age driven by quick validation and surface impressions, a woman who withdraws from the need to be seen and chooses a quieter, more centered life isn't passive. She's inwardly strong, a strength that seeks no show, no applause, yet quietly transforms the emotional quality of a relationship. And in turning from the spotlight, she creates a private, steady ground where sincere connection can grow, undisturbed by the noise of passing whims. 4. Merging with your world without losing herself. In a relationship of depth, love is not merely physical attraction or emotional resonance. True love is revealed in the ability to walk alongside, not through possession, but through shared presence on the path the other has chosen. When a woman loves sincerely, she doesn't stand on the sidelines of your life as a spectator, nor does she pull you into her world. Instead, she chooses to understand and immerse herself in what gives your life purpose, your passions, your mission, and the goals you pursue. This behavior doesn't stem from fleeting curiosity or desire to please. It arises from a deep understanding that behind every man with direction lies a personal value system that deserves respect, not disruption. She doesn't need to become an expert in your field. She doesn't pretend to understand to seem compatible. But she listens genuinely. She observes how you speak about your work, notices the light in your eyes when you mention a project you're nurturing, and asks questions, not to argue, but to understand what fuels your passion. She doesn't find your interests dull or too complex. Even if she doesn't grasp everything immediately, she remains patient, trying to connect your world with hers. This is not tolerance for the sake of appeasement, but intellectual empathy, the ability to expand one's worldview, to enter another's without judgment. For her, every sharing from you is a doorway, and if her love runs deep, she wants to walk through, not to change anything, but simply to be present with you in the journey. This companionship is also shown in how she creates space for you to grow. She doesn't obstruct your focus, demand instant replies, or make you feel guilty for pursuing your ideals. She isn't threatened by your ambition or schedule. On the contrary, she feels at peace knowing you're on course. And if she can support that through something as small as reminding you to rest, offering timely encouragement, or simply staying silent when you need solitude, she does so willingly. From a Stoic perspective, this kind of companionship without control reflects a rare ability to distinguish between what is within one's control and what must be left to another's autonomy. Stoicism teaches that each person has their own path, and true love does not mold others to fit our standards, but supports their growth toward their own. When a woman seeks to understand your inner world and aims, it is not to interfere or correct. It is simply to ensure you don't have to walk alone. In practice, many relationships suffer from hidden conflict between personal lives and shared intimacy. When one side refuses to understand or chooses not to, the other's passions, a quiet disrespect forms. Work becomes an excuse for distance, and dedication is mistaken for neglect. But a woman who loves with reason and trust won't let these things erode connection. She doesn't need to always be near, but she makes sure you know you're not alone. Exploring your world doesn't mean she loses hers. She doesn't become someone who lives only for you. She keeps her values intact, but knows how to open her heart to welcome what matters to you. Her presence in your life is not a burden nor mere observation. She is a companion, still enough not to intrude, strong enough to keep pace, and wise enough to know that true companionship needs no applause, only the quiet consistency of time. One of love's greatest challenges is to merge without losing self. When a woman truly loves, she naturally opens up, adjusting to grow closer to you. Yet what distinguishes mature love is her ability to preserve her identity throughout. Such a woman doesn't abandon her core values to please. She doesn't give up herself for superficial harmony. Instead, she holds on to what defines her, her principles, way of life, interests, and personal boundaries, even as she merges into your world. This firmness is not defiance or assertion of power. It's a profound form of self-possession. She knows who she is, what matters, and what is non-negotiable. She may adapt her behavior, shift habits for the sake of the relationship, but never compromises what constitutes her inner integrity. She doesn't fake interest in what she dislikes. She doesn't stay silent when her values are crossed. She doesn't trade dignity for temporary peace. Her boundaries are quiet, yet unmistakable. When you need her, she'll be there, not by abandoning her schedule, passions, or personal circles, but through intentional choice. She adjusts when it's fair, says no when it matters. She knows how to draw healthy lines, not just for her sake, but to preserve mutual respect. If you overstep a boundary, she doesn't retaliate with silence or outbursts. She responds directly and rationally. This is emotional maturity, the cornerstone of any lasting bond. In Stoic philosophy, this reflects the ideal of inner autonomy, autarkia, a life led by reason, untouched by the chaos of outside pressure. Stoicism doesn't promote isolation or rigidity, but insists on holding true to oneself, even amid expectation and desire. A woman who knows herself doesn't let love rewrite her moral compass. She loves with awareness, not dissolution. Reality shows that blurred boundaries often lead to imbalance. When one constantly sacrifices to please, self-respect erodes. That person starts to feel they must change to be loved, must give things up to be accepted. Over time, this weakens not only the self, but the relationship. It used now where one gives too much and loses their identity, while the other unintentionally begins to take it for granted. A woman who understands her worth avoids this state. She loves while remaining whole, never letting emotion drive her past the limits shaped by reason and lived experience. Maintaining personal boundaries helps a relationship grow in healthy ways over time. When both partners have their own space and identity, they don't rely on each other to feel complete. The bond then stems not from filling internal voids, but from conscious choice. Two whole, independent beings choosing to walk together without consuming one another. This lays the foundation for enduring connection, where both can remain themselves and still grow together. A woman who loves you while upholding her boundaries isn't distant or cold. On the contrary, her love is expressed through clarity, grounded presence, and awareness. She shows that love is not fusion. It is the meeting of two distinct worlds, where differences are respected, and independence does not preclude deep connection. 5. Embracing your darkness without retreat. In every human journey, there come inevitable moments of collapse. It may be failure at work, a crisis of belief, unresolved wounds from the past, or simply the long, dull ache of lost direction. In those times, strength often gives way to silence, steadiness yields to worry, and the outward shell crumbles under accumulated pressure. When a man enters that state, what he needs is not hollow advice or pressure to snap out of it. What he needs most is someone patient enough to be present, not to control, not to rescue, but simply to remain in quiet proximity. A woman who truly loves you understands this well. She doesn't deny that you too have moments of weakness. She doesn't look away from the truth that you may break, may reveal parts of yourself that are raw, even difficult. But instead of judging or walking away, she chooses to stay, not because she wants to be a savior, but because she knows that presence, often wordless, is the only anchor for someone sinking beneath their own weight. Her presence makes no noise. She doesn't barrage you with questions or demand explanations when you're not ready to speak. She doesn't force cheerfulness on you, doesn't compare you to others, nor shows disappointment when you lose your way. She gives you emotional space and remains there, steady like a quiet breath, beside a restless heart. Her decision to stay when you're at your lowest is proof of a love that depends not on conditions or illusions of perfection. In truth, to face someone's brokenness is no easy task. It demands inner fortitude from the one who stays. That woman doesn't get pulled into your emotional storm, nor does she retreat to shield herself. She maintains just enough distance not to be consumed, yet stays close enough for you to feel safe. Her empathy doesn't come from having suffered the same, but from a silent sensitivity, a way of noticing without words. She knows when to reach out, when to remain still, and when to simply sit beside you in silence. From a Stoic lens, this reflects emotional temperance and calm, virtues the Romans once called moral strength. Stoicism does not ask us to erase emotion, but to observe and govern it with reason. A woman who stands by you in your vulnerability, without judgment, understands this. Feelings do not define a person. How one acts in response to those feelings does. And she chooses steadiness, patience, and restraint, not letting your turmoil unseat her own clarity. Moreover, her non-judgmental presence is marked by another quiet virtue. She does not store your lowest moments as ammunition. She does not later bring up your weakness to prove you were once not enough. She does not use your pain to make you feel guilt or indebtedness. She sees being with you in that not as sacrifice, but as a natural act within a mature emotional bond. Her honesty in accepting you, both in light and in shadow, creates a space where you need not be strong to be loved. When a man feels that kind of presence, he doesn't feel judged. He doesn't have to mask his fear or pretend to be unbreakable. This opens a rare kind of safety, where weakness is not punished, but witnessed, processed, and eventually outgrown. Not through pressure, but through the quiet steadfastness of a woman who stays, not retreating, not condemning, not demanding. Every human carries imperfections, blind spots in character, unmet thresholds, and moments of falling short of their own ideals. This isn't a flaw in life, but a part of it. A woman who truly loves you does not build you up as flawless. She doesn't worship a perfect version of you. Instead, she sees clearly what you hide, what you're still struggling to fix, and she still chooses to believe in you. That belief is not blind. She doesn't pretend those limits don't exist. She doesn't deny past mistakes, poor decisions, or the harm you've caused to yourself or others. But rather than dwell on what went wrong, she watches how you face it. She notices whether you're willing to reflect, take responsibility, and seek change. And if you are, she invests in that process. A process that's imperfect but honest, slow but steady. Her choice to trust isn't built on grand promises, but on what you quietly show. A softened response to frustration, a pause before reacting, a step back to consider before speaking. She notices the smallest shifts, and it's those shifts that keep her faith. The fact that she stays while you're still becoming the better version of yourself is proof of a love not based on conditions, but on the belief in growth over immediate perfection. From a Stoic perspective, this reveals the distinction between essence and passing form. Stoicism teaches that the question is not whether people feel emotions or make mistakes, but how they respond after they fall. One may lapse into anger, confusion, or even poor behavior, but that does not define them so long as they can reflect and realign their conduct with reason. A woman who keeps believing in you, even while seeing your flaws, is not acting from delusion, but from a reasoned evaluation, grounded in reality. This trust does not mean indulgence. She does not accept endless stagnation. If you refuse to change, repeat harmful patterns, and show no progress, she may walk away. But as long as you strive, as long as you show you're working to better yourself, she remains, not to fix you, but to witness your becoming, a journey not everyone has the patience to stay for. To place faith in an imperfect person requires courage, because that means accepting risk. You may relapse, you may disappoint, but she chooses to believe because she knows no one grows in a place where failure is punished. She keeps a measured distance, not to detach, but to stay clear of destructive patterns, yet doesn't abandon you to protect her feelings too soon. This is how she shows conscious trust, not blind, not naive, and never chaining the past to your future. In a world that equates ideal love with having a flawless partner, a woman who sees your shadows and still stays is a rarity, not because she accepts less, but because she sees more, your potential, your sincere effort, and your quiet changes. She doesn't need you to be perfect to begin trusting. You just need to be honest with your progress. And that is the deepest foundation for a lasting bond, a place where one is allowed to be imperfect, but never allowed to stop growing. 6. Becoming an anchor amid life's storms. There are seasons in life when everything seems to turn against you. Carefully laid plans collapse. Relationships once thought unbreakable grow fragile, and your belief in yourself is gradually worn down by failure, pressure, and unforeseen upheaval. In such moments, even the strongest man can falter, not because he is weak, but because no one can stand against the world alone when the ground beneath begins to shift. And in those moments most prone to collapse, the role of a woman who truly loves you as an anchor holding you steady becomes unmistakably clear. Such a woman does not need to perform miracles. She doesn't need to solve your problems, nor impose advice or offer positive thinking. Instead, she is present, consistent, calm, and unwavering, and that alone becomes your point of contact in a world slipping beyond your grasp. She doesn't abandon her rhythm to chase chaos, nor does she walk away because you are no longer yourself. She stands just close enough for you to feel her presence, and just steady enough so that leaning on her doesn't feel like a burden. That steadiness comes not from grand gestures, but from small things. A conversation free from judgment, a meal at the right time, a glance that urges nothing, or simply the fact that she doesn't allow your emotional storm to pull her under. When you unravel, she does not unravel with you. When you grow silent, she does not rush to fill the quiet with needless words. She gives you space to contract and assures you without speaking that when you're ready to emerge from the dark, someone will still be there, unmoved, unchanged. To do this, such a woman must possess inner stability. She does not absorb your failure as a shared downfall. She understands there are things you must face alone, but that her presence may be the reason you don't collapse completely. She is like an anchor, unable to stop the storm, but keeping the vessel from drifting. She doesn't control your journey, but helps you maintain direction when you momentarily lose it. From a Stoic point of view, this reveals the virtue of emotional constancy, a form of moral strength the ancient Stoics held in high regard. Stoicism doesn't teach us to rescue others from pain, but to remain, to support, and not to be swept away by their pain. This woman does not deny that you are unwell, but she does not panic. Her steadiness is instinctive, not for show, not for control, but because she knows that at this moment, stability is something you cannot summon yourself, and she can hold it for you for a while. Her steadiness also appears in what she does not demand. She does not expect you to bounce back quickly. She doesn't add pressure with timelines or emotional ultimatums. She doesn't force you to be okay just because your brokenness makes her uncomfortable. Instead, she adapts, minimizing strain rather than adding more. This reflects not only understanding, but patience, the kind of patience that makes one feel safe while at their most fragile. A woman like that needs no gratitude. She doesn't act for recognition. She doesn't require repayment. She simply believes that everyone has moments of instability, and if she can be your ground in such a moment, then her presence has meaning, not in promises, but in action, quiet, enduring, and without retreat. She holds you in place while everything else falls away. There are times in life when we don't just face external trials, but suffer a deeper inner fracture. That's when a man begins to doubt himself, his ability, his worth, even the reason for his existence. Goals that once seemed clear grow vague. Principles once held become burdens. In that state, a man can grow unfamiliar to himself, acting without direction, thinking in spirals, shifting emotionally, and losing faith in his own being to a dangerous degree. In such a time, the presence of a woman with emotional composure and internal steadiness can be the support that keeps you from spiraling further into darkness. What's remarkable is that she doesn't try to fix you immediately. She doesn't soothe with empty optimism or invalidate what you feel. On the contrary, she accepts that for now, you've lost yourself, and she does not fear that fact. Instead of reacting to your negativity, she holds her own mind steady. When you grow distant, she doesn't conclude you no longer care. When you go quiet, she doesn't assume the relationship is failing. When you behave strangely, she doesn't respond with defensiveness or hurt. She knows you are at war with yourself and that these behaviors are not attacks. All she must do is stay stable so things don't worsen. Her trust in you is not grounded in immediate results. It is a conviction shaped over time, founded on what she has seen in you before. Your effort, character, virtues, and resilience, even if now they lie obscured. When you stop believing in yourself, she still believes, not because you are flawless, but because she remembers who you truly are. And that gives her reason enough not to withdraw that faith just because you're weathering a storm. In Stoic philosophy, this reflects the power of discerning what lies within one's control and what does not. She does not attempt to change your state, knowing that is your work to do. Instead, she manages her own mind, maintaining composure, acting with consistency, and choosing calm. This is restraint and reason in action, two central pillars of Stoic life. She doesn't act from instinct, nor does she let her insecurity dictate her behavior. She does not make your pain about her. To hold faith when you've lost faith in yourself is no small task. It means looking at someone's ruin and not crumbling alongside them. It means accepting that the one you love can fail, weaken, and lose their way, without letting that love turn to judgment or disappointment. She does not equate your current state with your essence. She sees past the surface to hold the full picture, that you are not a finished product, but a person still becoming. That trust is not naive or emotional. It is built on observation, comprehension, and an honest view of human nature. She knows no one remains perfectly intact forever. Every person has a downward phase, and disorientation is not an exception but a possibility. What matters is whether someone is strong enough not to fall with you, and faithful enough to hold what you've misplaced until you can take it back. That kind of presence does not seek attention or praise, and that's what gives it its worth. Because when someone stays, not on the condition that you return to normal, but despite not knowing when or if you will, it becomes a form of trust at its highest level. Belief not just in who you are, but in your power to return, even when you cannot yet see it yourself. When I reflect on all that a woman does, purely out of genuine love, quiet care, protecting your name, withdrawing from unclear relationships, entering your life without losing herself, standing by when you are weak, and becoming an anchor in your turbulence, I realize this. True love does not arise from flair or impulsive emotion. It stems from conscious choice, inner stability, and the capacity to endure difficult seasons together without losing one's sense of self. I believe that if we, as men, practice the principles of Stoicism in love, we too will become worthy of such a love. We cannot expect a woman to walk beside us through disorientation if we constantly avoid growth. Nor should we hope for steadfast presence if we ourselves are reactive and lack inner discipline. True love is not merely an emotion, it is a dual exercise in self-mastery. Both people hold to their values while remaining open enough to truly connect. And if you are with such a woman, do not take it for granted. Let your steadiness be your answer to her constancy. That is the most practical way to bring Stoic philosophy into your daily life. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss future content. Because sometimes the one who anchors you in the storm only needs you to be clear-headed enough not to let go. See you in the next video.